Hello and welcome to At the 55, your home for U Sports football. Me and Tom are back on the mics with a new installment of the Exit Meeting Series, and we are taking our talents back to Can West to talk a little Regina Rams football. We have a super special guest on to join us, so let me waste no more time so we can get into it. Tom, how the heck are you doing, my friend?
I am doing so well, my man. We've got an incredible guest joining us today. He was one of the greatest receivers to ever lace him up for the Regina Rams. At one point in time, owning the receptions record in a career with 180 of them. He is the 2022 Coach of the Year and the 2024 Hardy Cup champion head coach for your Regina Rams. Mark McConkey joins us here. Coach, how are you doing this fine day?
I'm doing great. I love the intros. You got to do them for everyone. Yeah, just happy to be on the show. Love what you guys are doing. Like I said, I'm a active listener. Love listening to you guys, and yeah, I appreciate what you guys do for U Sports football.
Well, and we love what you've been doing in your time at Regina in your current stint. Obviously, Tom talked about your tenure going back to your playing days there. And I want to start off with that history of you being a receiver within the program during your time now as the head man you've got to work with. Obviously, a guy in Deshaun Mims who had an awesome career. You getting to work with a young guy now that I was just saying to Tom, I I completely like whiffed on the fact that Sirleaf is only just finishing his second year going into his East-West year. But he was a head coach. You know, all coaches come from their specific background and specialty as a positional player, perhaps then positional coach, coordinator. For you, you've had, and you know, just to single out these two individuals, no doubt there's been other incredible players, but these two amazing talents that you've been able to have at the position you've played as a head coach, how does that play in for you in terms of knowing that position that much better? Do you put maybe extra pressure on them? How does that factor in when you've had these star players at the spot that you had so much success yourself at the school?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think everyone's got kind of a position they're the most comfortable coaching. And I work a lot with those guys. Like as the former offensive coordinator before I came head coach, I still run the offense. I still call the plays right now. For how much longer, I don't know. That's another debate for another time. But yeah, like when we meet, I meet with the quarterbacks and receivers. Like I'm with that group every single day, whether it's with a ROC Josh Donnelly or our new guy Jaden Marwick. I'm with those guys all the time. From time to time, I jump in there, run some indie time with them. Like that's the group I'm the most comfortable with because I feel like I can provide the most value. Put me on the D line, I don't know. I can still teach a few things, but that's why we've got hire great coaches across the board for us. So I don't need to do that. But yeah, really, it's fun. It's a fun group to coach. I think it's a great position. You got to kind of do it all, and yeah, I've just been really enjoying working with those guys. And I mean, you could go back to guys like Mitch Picton when I was the OC, just
Mhm.
working with him, and he just retired from the CFL after 8 solid years. And Mims, I was watching him play in the Rider preseason game yesterday, and Sir Leaf's another guy who will likely go to East West and likely hear his name called on the CFL draft.
Well, yeah, I had the incredible opportunity last year. Obviously, being based in Ontario, I got a chance to travel out and watch you play. Well, watch your boys play against that UBC squad. I believe it was week 3 of the season where you guys picked up a great win against a much better UBC team than the 3-5 that they showcased. And again, Sirleaf showed out in that game. He looked incredible. Being able to watch that in person was so amazing. But even as yourself, you mentioned it, you are the head coach, but you are still calling the plays as the offensive coordinator. When you have a guy like a Noah Picton, who's a Crichton winner, Mix Picton, and all of those guys, versus now when you've got Sirleaf and a couple of great quarterbacks that you went back and forth with, how has your play calling changed in order to adjust to the guys? We don't need you to get into specific game plans, obviously, but you're not calling the same plays that you were calling for Noah Picton as you are for these guys. So how does that come into factor as you're going through this?
Yeah, I mean, I think every coach has their own philosophy on how they do things offensively, and I'll be honest with mine. It's just you cater to your best players. Like, what are we good at? Who do we have? And go from there. If we've got six great receivers, like we did when Noah Picton was there, and arguably the best quarterback in U Sports, like we went six back empty pro the whole time. And but now we've got Marshall Erickson, one of the best running backs in U Sports. So it's like, okay, well, we
Mm-hmm.
got to get him the ball and get him going. Because so what are we the best at? Who are your best players? How do we design plays to get them the ball in space and let them just play football? So I don't think you need to overthink it. And I got a little cheat sheet on my call sheet. I call it like feed the studs. It's like, okay, these are Nick Sirleaf plays. These are Marshall Erickson
Mm-hmm.
plays. These are Renzel Arenaza plays. And you just go down the list. And I always like to start early in the game by getting them all a touch early. Because I know when I played receiver, if I didn't get a ball to the second half, like it's hard. You got to get those guys
Hmm.
the ball early, and it can be something simple like a tunnel screen to the boundary, get the O lineman
Hmm.
moving. Again, running back's easy. You can just turn around and hand it off. But receivers specifically, how do you get those guys in a rhythm and the quarterback in a rhythm? So that's something we really focus on when we have that quarterback meeting the night before. Of these are our starting plays. We got to get you going. We got to get Nick Sirleaf going. We got to get Marsh going because we're just a better offense when those guys are rolling at 100%.
Now, Coach, for Tom and I, we come from the offensive line perspective, and one of the things, though, that we've often commented on with a number of teams across youth sports is going to that piece about the rhythm from the receiver standpoint is when teams do utilize multiple quarterbacks, how that can sometimes affect that flow. And obviously, you had strong production coming out of both Peltier, coming out of Sieben this year. What is that like from the receiver standpoint when, clearly these guys have their affinity with both quarterbacks, but what are some of those nuances that maybe just from the outsider perspective, watching it on Saturdays or Friday nights, where you miss like that it's not just like, well, this guy's a good quarterback and this guy's a good quarterback, we just throw him in. What are some of those nuances when it comes to the quarterback receiver connection that can sometimes be tricky to get that chemistry down right if there is multiple quarterbacks vying for that spot?
Absolutely. It's definitely easier when you just got one guy and you roll with him the whole year. But it was an interesting quarterback situation with us. Like obviously Owen Sieben was the starter. He took over in 2023, was Can West Rookie of the Year, which is hard to do as a quarterback. And then coming into 24, he was our guy, and Noah Pelche was his backup. And then he got hurt week one and was out for the whole season. And then Noah went in there, did well, won us a Hardy Cup, almost took down the Big Red Machine, Laval, and then
Hmm.
Mitchell Bowl. And then coming into training camp, I said it's a battle, and we were like they were both unbelievable. And Noah was great and was playing way better than he did the year prior. Owen was awesome as always, but we just went with the older guy. And then, and as the year went on, it wasn't really planned to play both, but Noah started struggling a little bit, and we're like, okay, let's just change it up, get some mojo going. And Owen kind of delivered that for us in those two games in the second half, and then we ended up
Hmm.
making a change. And but for the receiver side point, like I'm sure they'd rather just have us stick with one, but I think the whole offense we just kind of had a little bit more energy and a little bit more urgency when Owen was in, and we ended up switching it up. And it was crazy to say. I think someone said that they're like, you might be the first 6-1 team to make a quarterback change ever.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, that's again, that's part of being the head coach. You got to make those tough decisions, and you got to do what's best for the team. And we felt that Owen gave us the best chance to win and go far in playoffs.
Certainly. And going into that was one of the questions I certainly wanted to ask you. Of course, getting a decision along those lines. You're at 6-1, you make a quarterback change, and you're doing this because it's the best part of your team. People on the outside looking in are staring at you like, what the hell are you thinking? Well, you've got this rhythm, you got everything else. But even in those 6 wins that you had before Saskatchewan in that game, you're looking and you're evaluating. It's not just it's a win, so everybody gets a check mark and away you go. You're scrutinizing, you're evaluating, especially when the backup is just as good as Owen Sieben is, and you're doing that. So what was the first kind of couple things that you're looking at here in terms of are you thinking of making a switch, or is it always in your head of like, well, if Noah's not performing well, I know Owen can, and vice versa?
Yeah, and that's the beauty of having two veteran, high quality quarterbacks. Like going into
Hmm.
the year, we said that, and even going into this year, like Owen's the starter, but Noah's there, and actually our third guy's playing really well right now too. So we got, and I'm confident we can win football games with all three of them, which is a
Hmm.
good place to have. But it does kind of create that. Okay, if the starting guy's not playing at a high level, we know we got a backup and even a third string right behind him that can play at a high level. Whereas when you have a guy like Noah Picton, the gap is so big between him and the
Hmm.
backup that you're going to give him a little bit more leeway. And at the end of the day, yeah, like win or lose, we're a process oriented team. We're not an outcome oriented team. So win or loss, we're still evaluating. We're still going to try to put the best 12 players out on OD and specials that give us a chance to win because that's what we're here for.
Hmm.
And coach, sticking with just the passing game piece of not just your club as of right now, but kind of just Can West in general, because again, being based out of Ontario, trying to for our fans locally get a better sense of Can West football. We've been of the opinion just watching the Can West football over the last number of years, even going back to our playing days, that there is a little bit more of that pro style offense akin to what you do see watching the CFL, both in terms of just the amount of passing, the types of formations that get used oftentimes we talk OUA, maybe it's just the Western football, effect of it all. A little more, we're going to run power G, pound the rock type deal. But yourself both having coached and played in that league, and as we've talked about, mentioning names like guys like Noah Picton, having some stalwart players in there, you're gonna feed them the rock. Does that seem to hold up with your experience playing and coaching in the Can West, that it might be slightly more reflective of that pro style? And if so, when you have these guys like, looking like at a young Sirleaf, what an edge that is for these guys when then eventually they're making that jump to getting their name called on draft day and having a career in the pros.
Yeah, I'd say that's bang on. Like we run a pro style playbook. Mike Gibson brought it to the Rams in 2015, and I've kind of just carried it through. And obviously, a guy I played with, Mark Mueller, who's the Riders OC, again, good
Hmm.
friend of mine. We run the same tree. Yeah, the plays are maybe tagged a little bit different from here to here, but at the end of the day, we're a pro style offense, and the canvas has always been that way. It has changed a little bit, like the pendulum, it always swings back, and
Hmm.
I don't think we'll be under center I formation, but like we've used the fullback way more than we ever have because
Hmm.
if you look at that golden era where it was a disaster to be a D coordinator in Canada West, like Buckley, Sinegra, Noah
Hmm.
Picton,
Hmm.
Michael O'Connor, like Mason Nias, Siemens, like if you held them to 300 yards passing, like that was a win for the defense. And it's definitely swung the other way. Defense is obviously adjusted. You see a lot more 30 front. They're dropping 9 in coverage. They were making it way harder. So now it's more of, okay, how do we get the run game going? Because the
Hmm.
box is so light, the coverage is so soft. So it's kind of swung back a little bit, and maybe it will go back the other way. But at the end of the day, it's very similar to CFL offenses, pro style playbooks, and it does. At the end of the day, it gets your guys ready to make that jump to the CFL when their name is called.
Well, it's really interesting, exactly like you mentioned here. You're seeing more and more teams using the fullback type, and I've seen even tight ends that are now permanent. Like it's not somebody who's a fullback that you're actually no, this is a tight end who like puts on 20 or 30 more pounds and is moving in, give him number 72 type deal, and he's on the offensive line. And you're seeing that growth. But again, you start talking about all of the incredible quarterbacks back in the day, which is not that long ago, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, kind of thing. But then you start looking around at the quality of the running back. You've got two of the very best in Christian Katende, Marshall Erickson, one of the best coming out of the backfield, and Riker Frank at the Saskatchewan, Isaiah Knight from a couple years ago at UBC. Like the
Matthew
running
Clark.
back and the running back rooms are getting so much better and better that exactly like you mentioned at the beginning of this, you've got a guy like Marshall Erickson. How are you going to get him the ball? Let's just give him the ball. Let's set things up. And even if you've got Nicholas Sirleaf out there, you want to get him the ball, and Renzo Arenaza, it's really easy to get this guy the ball, and he's consistent with every single time he's moving it. So it's incredible to see the growth of not just the game, but the individual players. It feels like the running back has always been going through something of a metamorphosis, let's say, because of just the Canadian game. There's more passing and everything. But seeing the growth of that position, especially in the Can West, is certainly, I'm thinking, bleeding into why there's so much more runs or there's more fullbacks and whatever else. And you're just gaining some more being able to move the ball. Suddenly, you're dealing with a 2nd and 4, 2nd and 3, and it's a whole lot better than a 2nd and 10 if you do an incomplete pass.
Yeah, 100%. And at the end of the day, every coordinator, like you just want to be effective on 1st and 10, right? You got to get
Hmm.
like a win is 5 yards. If you keep it to second and manageable, you're going to win a lot of football games. And Marshall did that for us. And obviously, shout out to you guys. It starts up front. If you got the O line that can push the pile and make the holes, you're going to win a lot of football games. And yeah, again, our line's done a great job. Coach Ro Boardman, Brett Jones, they've done a great job developing those guys. That's a position that we really, really focus on in recruiting and in development in the offseason. And it starts with them. And then it makes like when you can run the ball effectively, it opens up the pass. And that's exactly what I tell our receivers. I said, if you're willing to block for Marshall and they're going to start loading up the box, then it just creates more one-on-one matchups for you outside, which we can throw the ball.
Well, and let's go back to that first game, the OT thriller at Calgary to start off the season. We already talked about how with Sieben and some injuries in his career led to a bit of the back and forth. You move off from Mims, and obviously you got this young kid in Sirleaf, and you know that the air game will be there, but there's maybe some not question marks, but there's obviously been some stuff going on that makes you think, all right, it's maybe going to take a moment to have a game like that where he gets 4 touchdowns. You can just feed him the ball any which way out of the backfield as well, receiving it. Such a well-rounded athlete. Like obviously that game and kind of the way it got to OT was no doubt a nail biter. That rouge on the kickoff, I'm sure had you pulling out every last hair in your head. But knowing that what, Erickson was able to do, proverbially putting the team on his back, I know that's oversimplifying it. How nice was that to just know, hey, when the chips are down, when there's confusion, we know we can give it to this guy, as he said, having those plays, those calls on the play sheet saying just get it to Marshall, and he can take on some of that load if other aspects of the game, other aspects of the team aren't necessarily firing as much. Like what kind of confidence does that give you? And then as a rest of a team when you have a guy of that caliber.
Yeah, it changes everything. And I mean, coming into the year, the plan was for him and Katende to really split carries. Katende got hurt in kind of our green
Mhm.
and white scrimmage, so he sat out. He could have maybe played the Calgary game, but we just decided to keep him at home. And then Marshall just he went off and
Mhm.
he showed a lot of confidence. He was just a different runner this year. Like he's not the biggest guy, but he was running through guys. Especially that UBC game, like he was going right through the
Mhm.
middle linebacker, and usually he tried to avoid him, but sometimes he's like, I'm just going to get the first down and I'm going to go right through this dude. And that's not how he's ran in the past. So he was a different beast this year. And again, don't overthink it. Just go with the hot hand. And that's kind of what we told the RB room. I said, it's Marshall's job, and we're going to keep going with him until he slows down. And unfortunately, he got hurt in the semifinal playoff game, which was
Mhm.
a weird non-contact injury. But he was a different beast, and every time we had him back there, he's a threat to break a big one.
Absolutely. But again, he's great. And Katende is one of the best. You don't get it done without the big boys up front. Three of them being Canada West All-Stars and Riley Schick, Will Templeman, and Ethan Graham. You start talking about, of course, it's the universal truth. You have to have a good quality offensive line. But even just bleeding into that as well, what is it like trying to recruit those guys? Because you're not just staying in in Saskatchewan. You're going out to Alberta. You're going out to BC, out to Canada, out to Ontario, all across Canada. What is it like recruiting not just offensive line, but a bit of a focus on that? Finding those big boys that can move properly, that can understand your offense, and really pave the way for phenomenal running backs that you have.
Yeah, it's such a unique position, right? Because you can't just be a big guy. You got to be able to move well now. And some of our best athletes on our team are actually our linemen. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're high-level basketball players, they're provincial players. They can dunk, they can jump, and they're not just like a big body that just has to stand there and make someone run around. Like we want athletic, strong, physical, and guys with a bit of an edge. I won't swear on your podcast, but guys with a bit of an FU attitude. And that's what we do. We always recruit locally first, every position in Saskatchewan, and then from there we'll branch out into Alberta, BC,
Mm-hmm.
and Manitoba, Ontario. But yeah, that's a big emphasis. It's hard to find high quality alignment, and then when you get them, you got to really develop them, and that's what I think our guys in Roe Borgman and Brett Jones have done such a great job of. And yeah, it's a lot of time recruiting, a lot of Zoom calls, watching film, talking about their development plan, our scheme, how we see them fit in. But at the end of the day, all 27 teams are doing the same thing. So what makes us different? How are we gonna get those guys to come here and play O-line?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Coach, you brought up, and I do want to dive in a bit more later on into that semifinal matchup against the Big Red Machine out of Laval that you talked about, heartbreaker, no doubt though it was, but so much of what defined that run your team went on was that defense, and it still is such a strong core of your team. And I wonder because when I look at this defense, obviously you look at a guy like Carson Sombach and however many brothers he has on the team. My guy and Brandon Wong, Paulus Chuck doing their thing out of East West, Liam Platt back there as well. It feels like that's almost a natural response in terms of, if Can West offense is defined by passing the ball, you better bring a defense to the table that's going to be able to slow that down. Again, just to as a point of reference in the OUA, that you're really going to have to build a defense around a strong front seven. Not that they're, the reverse isn't true within those conferences, but with that no fly zone of a defensive secondary led by the local guy in Carson, and when again the whole family affair that his, going up a couple generations older. I forget how many Sombacks have come through that program. No doubt you can talk on that. Is that a reflection of how high powered some of these passing attacks are in the Can West that's going to say, hey, this defense needs to start in the back end, and then we'll kind of bring our way down to the box because you have one of the best secondaries across all of you sports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's too many Sombacks on the team. It's a little bit better now that Jackson's graduated. He's on the Stamps roster, and I mean Carson, he could come back. He's in Ryder camp right now. He played yesterday. He's playing really well. It's just a football family. And there again, it was funny because they're all defensive backs. So at one point in a preseason game, we had all four of them out there on the field, which is pretty cool. And his dad, their dad Steve played. He's definitely the least athletic one out of all of them, but yeah, his kids, they're great. It's just a football family.
Oh,
They're Rams through and through, and yeah, just happy to have them all in the team. And again, we got two younger ones coming up right now, the twins. So we're excited about those guys. But yeah, at the end of the day, our Coach Gray, our defensive coordinator, he's one of the best, right? We call him the mad
Mhm.
scientist. He's like a chemistry teacher in the morning, and he's a halftime D coordinator. Our playbook is super complicated. There's lots of moving parts, and I hate going against it in training camp and all off season. But I tell our offensive guys, like, this is going to make us better. And I know our O-line coaches always complain about it. They're like, oh, they're doing two gap stunts. They're doing this. I said, hey, like, we will be so prepared going against
Mhm.
U of A week one, Manitoba week two, because of this. Like, this is actually going to make us better. So yeah, they win more share of the practices for sure, but it makes us better. And honestly, like, yeah, it starts in the back end, but with Coach Gray, to me, it starts up front. Got to have a great
Mhm.
front seven. And then if you stop the run, right, if you limit that 1st and 10, then that's going to put a lot of pressure to convert those second and longs through the air. And then that's when our guys like Brandon Wong, Somback, Max Polschuk, Jacob Kachuk can step up and make those plays. And again, I think all around our defense is solid. We got a lot of guys coming back. It should be another solid year for us defensively. And again, it starts with our defense. In 2024, it wasn't our offense who won us those big games. It was our defense. And
Mhm.
if you have a good defense, you're going to have a chance to win a championship.
Well, again, you talk about that 2024 season. That game against Laval, you are completely in because of that unbelievable defense. Your offense, obviously, your entire team played very well, but that defense limiting the Rouge et Or for so much of that game was an unbelievable thing to see. And again, we do our very best to be as unbiased as we can be when we're on the mics. When we're off the mics, I was cheering for the Rams. I was losing my mind. I was a Regina Ram through and through watching that game. It was incredible to be able to see that. And of course, for the people who don't know, you win the Hardy Cup after finishing 3-5 in the regular season and being able to go on a run and upset everybody else where everybody's thinking, oh, it's going to be Calgary versus UBC. No, it's the Battle of Saskatchewan in there with you guys coming out on top, which was an incredible thing. And if not for just that last minute drive against Laval, you would have been going to the Vanier Cup as well, which was incredible here. But you start looking at that, and again, for the folks who don't know, the Regina Rams football team is relatively new as being a part of the university. You were a part of the CJFL for a number of years. And so when you look around and people have said this, you finished at 6-2. That's the best record that the Regina Rams have ever had. Again, football is very much your heads to the grindstone. Your heads down. We're working. We're doing everything. But every once in a while, I'd like to try and talk to our guests about poking your head up, looking around, and realizing what you've done so far. In your already young coaching career, you've won a Coach of the Year, you've won a Hardy Cup, and you've helped lead a relatively new program to its best ever record in the regular season here. What does that mean to you when I list those things off the top of my head?
Yeah, I'd say it's just exciting for the program.
Mm,
And again, the big thing in 24 is we really got the monkey off our back. Like we hadn't won a playoff game since 2012, since I was
mm.
playing. Like that's how long ago it was. And
Wow.
so to win that first playoff game going into Manitoba, upsetting them, they were 7-1. We had no business being in playoffs. But that's just the Canada West for you. Like I
Yeah.
said, anyone can beat anyone any given day. There's no bottom feeder team. Like you could be 1-7. Like last year, Juve was 1-7. We beat him on a last second field goal and we were in
Hmm.
second place. Like you just never know. So to win that first playoff game, kind of get that off our chest and just, I mean, you have to do it. You got to, like, I know Spark Soria was on here. They're learning, like they won a playoff game. They went and beat Western on a crazy
Hmm.
finish, which I'll leave at that. And like, it's your players and your coaches and your program need to learn how to win those tough games and be in those games. And now we've done
Hmm.
it. And then this year, we weren't really even talking about it. We Manitoba came here for the playoff game. We won in double overtime. Went up to U of S for the Hardy Cup again. We've been there before. We've done it. We have confidence that thought we were going to go in and win. And that's just the standard now. The standard of our program has now changed. It's now no longer just happy to be in playoffs. Like we want to
Hmm.
compete and be in the Canada West Championship because we know if you can make it out of Canada West, you got a chance. It just really depends on how healthy you are at the end of the year. But so I'd say it's cool to see, but again, we got a lot of work ahead of us to try to get to a third Hardy Cup in a row this year. But we're excited for the opportunity and again, ready to go compete come September 4th.
Well, coach, how does that messaging from you as the head coach and your various coordinators, positional coaches change let's go back again to that 2024 season where it's that success is in so many ways it's found money. It's kind of like we're always the underdog, whatever efforts, or if we end up pulling off the win, it's great. And if we fall in our efforts, hey, look, we kind of maybe overdid what people expected, even though I'm sure internally you always have that messaging of like, if we do our thing as best as we can, no one can stop us. To then come into this year where all of a sudden, as I always make this reference that Coach Lang, I remember once mentioned to me, you can only be unsung the one time as a player, whether as a team, you have those expectations and you're living up to them in the year. And we get back to that Hardy Cup. And unfortunately, similarly to that national semi, it's unable to hold on late. But more important than that, I'm just curious how that messaging changes and then maybe thinking about whether it's changed in any capacity going into next year again, where the team is continuing to evolve. Yes, Can West, it's the worst to first happens seemingly on a decently regular basis. But when those expectations do change, how does the messaging adapt with it?
Yeah, that's bang on. I think in 24, like I don't say we were just happy to be there, but we were the underdog and we really leaned into that. I think we were like voted fifth out of six in the coaches poll, snuck into playoffs. And again, we were 3-5, but as like Brian Dobie said, he's like, you're the best 3-5 team I've seen in my career. Because we lost a couple games by 1 point, 3 points, and we just didn't find a way to win those games early in the season. And once we got in, you just got to get in and play good football. And we really peaked at the right time. Like we kind of had an analogy, like we're at the casino and we just keep doubling down. Like if we're just playing with free money, like we just
Hmm.
found money on the floor and we just keep going. And then to switch gears into 2025, you win the Hardy Cup, you almost take down Laval. Like people are going to be studying you a little bit more. They're going to kind of have you marked out on their calendar, and which is good. And like I think pressure is a privilege, right? So
Hmm.
there's a lot of pressure on us to win now this year. And I said, like, what an opportunity it is for us. And we really seized it. Again, we focused on just the process, not so much on wins and losses. I used to be a coach like that. Like we'd lose, I drag my lip around for 4 days, but we move on quick. Like we lost to the Huskies, didn't play very well in the regular season, moved on quick, had 3 wins in a row. That's it's all about just doing things the right way. We're going to outwork teams in the film room on the practice field. That's just it's a Saskatchewan way, right? Blue collar,
Hmm.
nose to the grindstone, and just work. And that's what we kind of pride ourselves on. And again, coming into this year, expectations are high again. We didn't lose too many guys. Expectations are that we're going to win and be in playoffs. And again, that's not a guarantee in Canada West. So I like being on both sides of it. Obviously, the underdog is easier because it gives you a bit of a fallback, but I like the pressure that we've put on ourselves and our alumni and Saskatchewan's kind of put on us. And ultimately, we just got to go out there and perform and compete and just keep getting better all season long.
Well, you mentioned it a couple of times about what it's like to play for Regina in Saskatchewan, obviously. And Saskatchewan is a football province with the Riders and with everything else. Being in Regina, where the Riders also play, what is that atmosphere like when you're playing there? Because obviously there are some games where you play at Mosaic Stadium as well, and that's an incredible stadium. I had the chance to be out there for the Vanier Cup. What a beautiful stadium that is, one of the best in all of Canada here. But what is it like playing, for the folks who don't understand, in Saskatchewan in front of a crowd that are massive football fans?
Yeah, football means a lot here. It really does. It's kind of, I don't want to say there's nothing else to do, but I kind of tell recruits that. Like it's just football in school. And we don't have the Raptors, we don't have the Leafs, the Senators, the Flames. Like it's cold here. It's the Riders and the Rams in Regina. It's the enemy up north in Saskatoon, which is
Hmm.
great. But football, like it starts at the grassroots, like Regina minor football, Saskatoon minor football, they do a good job. I just finished coaching my kid's flag football game. He's 6 years old, and it's the biggest flag football league in Canada, just in Regina alone. So
Let's
football
go.
is it's crazy here, and I love it. Like it's people know who you are. We got a small campus. You're a big deal here, which is awesome. Whereas you go to some of the bigger cities, there's just too much else going on, right? And in order to play in front of it, like our guys love playing in Mosaic Stadium. Yeah, we wish we could get 33,000. That's the only negative is you get 10,000. We're playing the
Hmm.
Huskies. It's a good crowd, but it just looks a little empty.
Hmm.
So we play half our games at like our Libel field. It's like our minor football field, which is a great atmosphere, but that's almost not big enough. We have to have people sitting on the grass berm to watch that one. So we try to do a little bit of both, but at the end of the day, yeah, we got passionate fans, which is a good thing. And I mean, as you guys know, the riders, it could be a bad thing. There's always the hardcore rider fans who have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And they're yelling at Mueller for running the ball on 2nd and 1, but that's how it goes. But I'd rather have it that way than no fans at all. So we got a
For
lot of
sure.
interest in football, and like I said, it starts with football Saskatchewan, like Mike Thomas doing an outstanding job. Minor football guys are doing great, and obviously it's just it makes it a fun atmosphere for us for sure.
Well, Coach, I want to continue pulling that thread of Battle Saskatchewan. I quickly want to just go back to something that dawned on me in something you had mentioned a moment ago. That much like I think as we pointed out to Coach Saria, that he gets to now be in a really cool trivia question of who was the head coach to take out Greg Marshall in his last football game. You, sir, I believe get to be the answer to the question of who was the coach to defeat Coach Brian Dobie in his last game of U Sports football. So that's also a pretty cool trivia question to be a part of. So salute to you, but. Let's dive deeper into this battle of Saskatchewan. And as fans, we've been blessed to obviously not just get it as a regular season matchup, only the one time last year, but as the Hardy Cup matchup that we've gotten to see over these past years. Like, what is that atmosphere like? You know, we talk with so many folks in the OUA, we get a lot of good geographical matchups. Panda with Ottawa and Carleton, Battle of Waterloo, Tom and I with the Guelph Hamilton connection. But
Mhm.
Battle Saskatchewan, because of all those things you mentioned, of it being a football crazy province in the best way possible. Like, golly, as a player and a coach, what is that atmosphere like?
Yeah, it's awesome. Like obviously there's a ton of respect for Coach Flory and their
Mhm.
staff, and you always got to start there. But when it's game time, like we're not friends. Like it is this is and I love it. And to be honest, like when I played, like not that I condone fights, but like there was like fights on the field pregame. Like one alumni I think tried to punch Akeem Hicks, and I was like probably the wrong guy to try to go after. And then that the rivalry kind of like it kind of died down a little bit. And obviously part of it was them just beating us all the time after we lost Noah Picton. But and then in 2024, we really tried to spark it back up with our guys. And I mean, it's tough. I mean, it'd be the same as Team Ontario. Like all these guys play together on Team Sask.
Yeah.
And then half go to the Huskies, half come to the Rams, so they're all buddies. And we just kind of said, like, hey, listen, like we love them, they're great, we respect them, they're kind of us just up north. But when it's game time, man. Like we're not friends with these guys. Let's go. And then obviously, I think the fact that we've gotten better and we've beaten them a few times, beat them in the Hardy Cup, beat them in a regular season game, like that's what makes a rivalry, right? If it's just one team beating the other team every single year, year in, year out, you kind of lose a little bit of that. So I think the last number of years that we've been better and we've gone to the right to the end with them. We beat them in the Hardy Cup. And I know still to this day that's a sour taste in their mouth. And obviously they beat us last year by 1 point, a game that we should have probably won. So it's a friendly rivalry for sure. Like I said, like Scott does a great job, and Mason Nias is there now. Cody Hallseth, like good guys. I'll talk to them all the time in the off season, but once the season hits, we're there to win, and it's a fun to be a part of it. Great atmosphere, a lot of hatred during the game, which is great, but then after the game, it's all respect.
Yeah, certainly. Like Zach mentioned, he and I met each other quite a few times, McMaster and Guelph, in those championship series, and there was a bit of bad blood between our two teams. In 2019, I had a chance to go out, and I was a part of the coaching staff with Guelph, and I came in there like, what? You guys aren't all jerks like I thought when I was a player. This is weird. I don't know how to do this. I don't want to put this sweater on. And then of course, just some of the best people possible, like every team does, but kind of like ruined that mystique for me a little bit. Like I hate this. Oh, no, they're really good guys over here, so I'm sure it's the same thing. And obviously, it's Coach Flory, Coach Nias, they're incredible people. But come game time, man, it's Regina Ram football all day, all day long, which is incredible to see. But going into this season in particular, because again, really easy to just look outside looking in. You guys are 6-2. Teams like Calgary 3-5, UBC 3-5. These are not your standard 3-5 teams. Like it is a slog to win. Obviously, we detailed the overtime victory game one against Calgary. You're playing against a Alberta squad that you had to come down to a field goal to win it in the later part of the season, obviously, and UBC that you beat when I got a chance to watch you at the very end of the season. So we've mentioned this and we've had this conversation with a few people who talk about Can West, and we talked about this with a little bit with you as well. But when you think of Can West football and you think of the conference as a total, in your mind, is it the most competitive conference across the all of Canada U Sports?
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys are OUA guys, so you're not gonna like this, but it really is. Like, because like you said, we in 2015 we were 0-8, and then the next year we went 6-2, tied our program record again, right? That was the only other time we did it. And like, how do you go from 0-8 to 6-2? Like, obviously Noah Picton helps, but we had him in 2015 too. So it's just every year, right? You just never know, and that's why you'll see a team like Manitoba go 7-1, and that's rare. But again, a lot of those games they won were just by a few points. That's why when we went
Mhm.
in there at 3-5, again, I love Coach Dobie, and I hate being the guy who beat him because he's a good friend of mine. But like I was confident that we could take these guys down. They weren't untouchable. They weren't like the 2015 Dinos who ended up losing in a Hardy Cup, and they were probably one of the greatest U Sports teams ever.
Hmm.
And it's just, yeah, each and every game you're playing to the last whistle. You're going to get a few games that get out of hand, but at the end of the day, that's what I love about it, and I also hate about it. There's no game where you're playing a team and you know your starter's out at half. Whereas in some other conferences, right, the old Western of late, like Hillock's probably out in the third quarter because they're up by 50. But we just don't have those games, which I love. Like it's every
Hmm.
possession matters, every play matters. You get on average 66 plays on offense and defense, and you just never know when those key 6, 7 plays are going to happen, and it's going to open up the game. So, yeah, it's awesome to see. We recruit, we compete in recruiting, we compete on the field, and it's just so tight all the way to the end of the season, and I love it. But again, I wouldn't mind if there was an easy game on the schedule once, but that's not reality out here. And at the end of the day, it's fun. Our players love it, so we prepare each and every week like this is it. This is the biggest game of the season.
And again, going back to the pro style offensive system that seems to permeate across so many of these teams in Can West. You look at teams in Calgary and UBC that, as we mentioned, you were, in these tight ball games with young guys like David Jordan and Drew Viotto, which, we'll take a bit of a credit as an OUA based podcast. When you get Mike O'Connors and Drew Viottos, let's always remember those are Ontario boys out there. But, with we've seen this generation of great players like Tuchinski with Manitoba and everything that he was able to do there, all these, incredible offensive weapons out of Saskatchewan in both their passing attack and their rushing attack. But then you look at these clubs like Calgary and UBC just ready to seemingly take the reins. Like, how does that go as a preparation when to that point when, in the OUA, you kind of always know that if you can mark yourself against these handful of teams out there. That's sort of the standard that you need to set to be able to say, all right, we've put ourselves in a position to compete with the best. When one year to the next it's changing, like that must make the preparation process that much more difficult. Like at the end of the day, I'm sure we focus on what we do in the building and we prep week by week. But again, the juggling act that must be coaching in the Can West just sounds like such an undertaking with how, it's whack-a-mole of who you got to deal with next.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. And we play each other so often, right? Like
Hmm.
you play two teams once and then three teams twice. And again, it's based on like a 6-year rotation. Again, this year, I think we only played the Huskies once again, which is too bad. I love playing those guys and it makes sense to play twice, but they're making it an equal rotation, which is totally fair. And again, that's the thing. You got to be able to beat teams 2, 3 times. And,
Hmm.
because you got to play them in playoffs too, probably. And that's like, it's just a slugfest in each and every week. And yeah, I don't think we prioritize one team more than the other. Every team's good, and we just do our regular off-season scouting, our kind of pre-season game prep, and then obviously once it's time to really prepare for that team that Saturday, Sunday, then we're all in there. But again, that's the best part of it. There's no our players don't they know it. Like after every win, I say like, and they kind of make fun of me, but like winning in this conference is hard.
Hmm.
And even last year we beat U of A, and I say, fellas, and then they all yelled it, winning is hard. And I was like, yeah, it is. And so they know it. I don't think I need to really preach it with the players. They've seen Canada West football games. It can flip in 3 minutes. Like we lost a big lead to UBC in the last 3 minutes of the regular season to should have finished 7-1. And but that's what I told them. I was like, I'm glad that happened because that gets us ready for playoffs. We weren't going to get up to first place. The US had it locked up. We're still second. It didn't really hurt us in the standings, but it's kind of a good sour taste in your mouth. And that's yeah. Again, every week is just an absolute battle, and you just prepare like it's a playoff game.
100%. We had an opportunity to talk with Coach Marco out of Montreal as well. In that 23 season, they lose the very last game of the regular season. They go 7-1, and you're thinking, "Oh my God, what happened here?" And you talk to him afterwards. He goes, "That was honestly the best thing possible because it level set us and got us into the playoffs." And obviously, they ended up winning the Vanier Cup that year, along with this past year. But that can be such a blessing in disguise as well to just make sure that you're not on top of the world kind of thing. You come back down to reality and say, no, you got to play every single team like it's the U of S, like it's the Lavals of the world. You have to make sure that you're playing your very best. And while we're on the topic of just talking about the conference as a whole, I know there's a lot of things that are up in the air right now. This is more of a hypothetical more than anything else. But you, as a coach in the Can West, start to see Simon Fraser looking at coming into the conference as well, and starting to see some of the teams that would come in. I think it's like track and field and volleyball, and no mention of football as of yet. And I think we're a long ways before that happens. But the concept of that to you, is that something that's exciting to bring another team into the conference? Obviously, it's another team in BC that adds a little bit more travel to what you're doing. But what are your initial thoughts about what that potentially could bring?
Yeah, I think it'd be great. Again, not that we're tired of going against the same other five teams all the time, because it is what it is. But if we were to add another team, whether it's like in Kelowna, like I know there's talks about
Mm,
at UBCO, again, I don't know where that's at. SFU, like you said, it's a long ways away. Like everyone's like, oh, football's back. But I was like, no, it's not. But maybe one day down the road, I would love it. I know at our Kafka meeting, we talked about a national playoff like
mm,
structure format. Like I think this year, I think Coach Flory did a really nice job at kind of putting what it would be like. So the two seeds would host, and I think we were hosting like St. FX, and I don't think the Rams have ever played St. FX. So they didn't had Windsor going to somewhat like Manitoba going to Montreal, which they've never played. Like there was some cool matchups, and again that's why we love youth sports. It's always a go, what's the best conference, and we don't really know until you got to play, right? Because you
mm.
only get the Mitchell Bowl. Obviously, I think we showed well versus Laval. UBC lost to Montreal in the Vanier by less than 10 points. Like they showed well. And then, but it'd be fun to play like a Guelph, like Guelph coming out to Regina for a playoff
Hmm.
game. That'd be awesome.
Oh, it'd be
Or an
electric.
AUS school. Like, so there's always those types of conversations. Again, I don't know how close we are to that, but
Hmm.
again, we're always trying to grow the game. And I think that'd be great because it is fun playing Manitoba, UVA, Calgary for sure. But it'd be nice to host Windsor somewhere
Hmm.
crazy, like Windsor, Regina, never played before. That'd be a cool atmosphere and just a cool game. And then it would really help kind of be like, okay, what is the best conference? Because
Yeah.
it's hard to see because usually it's the one only the teams that make it out, right?
Hmm.
Well, I mean, gosh, I mean, it just me and Tom are both doing backflips over here, just thinking of all those possible permutations. And obviously, when we were able to set this up, seeing you just so casually sitting in the stands at East West, is it like you're not a big deal, just there, just watching your boys out there. That is one of the cool showcases in the year where we do get a little bit of that, and there are bragging rights for the conferences. And we had the pleasure of interviewing Coach Waterman talking about St. Effects and the impact for, especially with the AUS guys getting to be on that stage and being able to represent their conferences and their teams. And your guys were representing the school really well. And I'm curious, just going back to a bit of the Saskatchewan rivalry, when, young man Ethan Lang out of that other team from Saskatchewan ends up, being recognized as the top defensive player. Is there a bit of the like, all right, go Can West, or is it a little bit more of your Rams hat being like, what about my guy Paul's and my guy Wong out there? Like when you get to those types of events, is it just like celebration of all things football, or is there still a little bit of, I'm happy for Can West, but I want to see my guys get the shine.
Yeah, no. For me, it's just ultimately I'm cheering for the West team because all of our guys are on it. We haven't had that where I know UVA had a couple guys on the East team, like their quarterback was on the East, so
Hmm.
that would be a little bit interesting. I'd probably cheer more individually there, but our guys are always on the West side, so I'm always cheering for Team West, and I don't really care who makes the play. I was pumped for Ethan Lang. I remember recruiting him many years ago, and that's the funny part about the rivalry. We talk about it, and it happened to me when I went to East West. Our guys go every year. They come back and they're like, you know what, coach? Like, I really like the Calgary Dinos guys. I like the Huskies guys.
Hmm.
They're great guys. And I was like, yeah, it's the same conversation every year. And they're like, they're just like us. They just play for a different team. So and that's great to see. And that's really what it's all about. It's a great game. I was fortunate enough to play in it. I love that Chris Portoya, the work he puts in. It's a lot of work him and his staff put in for that game. And it's something that I don't think we can lose because it does really highlight the best players going into their draft year. And it's just a great experience for our guys. They love it. They get to know other players. And like I said, like our guys are good friends with the Huskies guys right now. But I said, okay, but like week 4, let's remember and they'll be dialed in for that. But really, they're all the same. We're all the same. You can play
Hmm.
at Guelph, Mac, Regina, UBC. We all have common interests. We're all here for football and school, trying to better our life, and it's really cool to see.
100%. Now, looking into going into this 2026 season and looking at the structure of your team, you're losing a few key players from the past few years, specifically up front as well. Riley Schick in that fifth year, Connor Klassen in that fifth year, Ethan Graham obviously getting drafted to BC. He has potential, but I think he's been doing pretty well. A number of receivers like Emmett Stedman, Trey Jones. You've got a number of guys on the offense in particular that are and could be moving on as well. Now, obviously, getting guys but like Noah Peltier, Owen Sieben, Marshall Erickson, Christian Tende, who I believe should be coming back as well. That's great. But losing so many guys up front and some key receivers as well, that's going to be a really big those areas to fill. What can you talk to us about some of those senior guys that are moving on and what that means to your program?
Yeah, I mean, I got to pick on Stedman. He wasn't, again, he doesn't get mentioned with the Knicks or Leafs and the Rensselaer Nazas, but he might have been our most valuable player on offense. Like what we asked of him to do in the run game as a receiver, blocking defensive ends, coming up through the line, gaining ground on linebackers, and he made some big catches in the Hardy Cup, got a touchdown for us. Like when it mattered the most, he was our most clutch performer.
Mm-hmm.
He got us into field goal range to tie it up in that playoff game, to put it to OT on a bit of like a out and up, and he's just incredible. So he's definitely going to be missed. And a guy like Riley Schick up front, like he's outstanding. He's in Toronto or Hamilton Ticats camp right now. See if he cracks it or not. But again, he's just such a good leader. Came from Regina Thunder, did that PR thing with the Riders. He's a pros pro. He really brought a lot of leadership and high IQ to that group. And again, the center's always got to be the guy making the calls. So losing those guys is tough for sure. But we got guys ready to step up and fill those in. And actually Connor Clausen, he's actually back. He went to Lions camp. He actually just got released, but because he tore his ACL in Lions camp last year, he actually redshirted for us this year. So we didn't have him this year. So with him coming back, if Ethan Graham comes back, it might be scary, but I think our O-line actually might be better than last year. So we're in a good spot there. And again, we'll see. I know Ethan, I was texting him yesterday. He said he played really well. So I hope he makes it, but if he doesn't, we'll welcome him with open arms. And yeah, we got guys that are kind of biting at the heels here to get in, and we got some guys that are ready to step up and make some plays. But it's always hard to replace those guys. But that's the best part about youth sports is you want them forever, but then it's always the next guy. Who's going to be the next Riley Schick graduating that you're going to miss? And again, we've done a great job. Our volunteer coaches do a great job developing those guys and getting them ready to play. And I mean, I'm just excited for the new opportunity for these young guys that they do have in front of them.
And obviously, the step before that are all the incredible recruiters you have covering every inch of the country, and no doubt probably across the border as well. So, last thing I want to ask you about, Coach, or not really even a question, I want to roll out the red carpet for young athletes, families with young athletes from sea to sea to sea, tuning in, learning about your program, the successes of the past few years. Why should these young athletes pick the Regina Rams to pursue their university football career?
Oh, I love it. I don't want to give away all my recruiting secrets here, but at the end of the day, like we talked about it on here, right? Football means something here.
Mm-hmm.
We're a small school. We're the smallest school in Canada West by far population. So we got small class sizes. It's a bit of a small community just within Regina. We're on the south end of town here. And like I said, football matters here. People care about football. People know who you are, which is a good thing and can be a bad thing too. But it's football all the time. And if you genuinely love football, you're going to love it here because all we do is football and school. That's it. Yeah, the guys go be young men and do their thing, but there's not a lot of distractions here. It's pretty much football, school, and we do a lot of off-season training, a lot of development in the weight room, and it's really we're just here to try to make these men better people and ultimately graduate the degree. And again, I'll leave it at that. I won't give away everything, but obviously winning's been helping, and we got a lot more players reaching out to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like, oh, you're there's another school in Saskatchewan. It's not just U of S, and so I think we're definitely on the map now with a lot of recruits, and you can tell when you call a kid, they're like, yeah, I'm going to you guys or Guelph for you guys or U of S, and we're already top of mind with lots of these Western Canadian players. We got to get more into the Ontario a little bit, but it's that's a different dynamic. Even going to
Mm-hmm.
East West, they're like Laurier's 2 blocks from Waterloo. Like recruiting there is that's a different beast. Whereas that's like, okay, you want to go to BC, cool. You got to move 2 provinces over, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. So it's interesting landscape over there for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Well, one of the things I wanted to make sure to ask you about, obviously, you've mentioned it a few times. You've got a phenomenal staff that's out there with your full timers, the volunteer coaches that are there helping to develop, but something of a new face that's kind of been something of a special guest coach in certain times has been one Luke Wilson as well, who's came out to your spring camp and has been a part of that. I think since he went out to start covering some of those Rider games, you developed a little bit of a relationship. What can you mention about Luke and him being a part of your program in at least a limited capacity?
Yeah, Luke was great. The big connection there was our offensive line. Brett Jones played in the
Mm-hmm.
NFL. They're obviously him and Luke are both Canadians at the time, and Brett was on his podcast and kind of mentioned him coming. He's like, I'm in. So obviously we held him to it. And our first meeting with him, he said, hey, coach, like I coach. He coaches down in London,
Mm-hmm.
spring ball right now. And he's like, I don't want to just be like a puppet, do a little talk. Like I want to coach. And he did everything he advertised. He was working with the tight end fullbacks. He was in meeting rooms, talking to players. Like we'd have like meals after practice. He wouldn't even be sitting with the coaches. He'd be sitting with the players, getting to know them. And he's great. Like honestly, just
Mm-hmm.
he's just like one of us. Yeah, he just happened to be a really good football player. He played in the NFL. But he truly does it for the right reasons. And I know sometimes on Twitter he can get a bad rap from some people, but he loves football. He's doing it for the
Mm-hmm.
right reasons. Like I said, he drives 2.5 hours to coach,
Mm-hmm.
3 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever it might be. And his heart's in the right place. And he's just a good person, which is which was awesome to see. And obviously now him and I connect quite a bit now, which is great.
Well, he is the head coach of the Regina Rams football program, Coach Mark McConkey. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today, talking about your program, all the amazing things you have going out there with Regina. It's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on, guys. Keep doing your thing. I'll keep listening and yeah, keep growing the game. I love it.
Brilliant. Well, our next stop, Tom, I don't know if you want to bail me up. I'm not sure where we're heading, so maybe we'll keep it a secret and you'll have to tune in to find out right here next week at the 55.